everyone. Thank you so much for being here today and having me. Thank you so much to Vivian. I think Vivian had to become an event coordinator to help plan today. So a lot of today is thanks to Vivian. So thank you very much. Vivian and I have known each other for a few years. Our kids are at the same school. My daughter and her son are in the same fourth grade, and she worked with my husband actually at a previous company. So we've kind of known each other in different capacities, and I know her as a strong working mother, which is a great role model for all of us. So today I'm here to talk to you about my book, which just came out October 1st, Your Turn, Careers, Kids, and Comebacks, A Working Mother's Guide. And I want to get to the book, but I wanted to start, and I'll start by telling you a little bit about myself, but I want to start with a quick video that we put together that's just kind of fun, kind of loosen everybody up a little bit about working mothers.
I have kids. Learned a lot right there.
For the past, 15 years, nothing?
I'm ready to throw myself back into work 24/7. I'm ready to pick up where I left off.
I'm sure.
You're super late for your marketing meeting.
You have to tell me these things.
Clients would rather deal with men when it comes to figures.
I lose a promotion because of some idiot prejudice.
If the law differentiates on the basis of sex, then how will women and men ever become equal?
She's on her way. Tell everyone. I need the P&Ls on the landfill overseas. I also need the latest ZBBs and PBBs. And Robin, I want you to get me the CEO of IBC ASAP.
Bye, baby. I'll be at the office.
Okay, well, just make sure you call us and let us know when you're coming back. We'll be here waiting, just the two of us.
I don't know how you do it.
I don't know how you do it.
I don't know how she does it.
Guess where I am?
Okay, so just a fun little video there to get us going here. So let me start a little bit by telling you who I am and why I'm here and hopefully qualified to be talking about what I'm talking about. So I'm Stacey Delo, and in my professional life, I run a business called Après, which helps women return to the workforce after career breaks for caregiving. Sometimes that's a short break, such as maternity leave, and sometimes it's a longer career break, 5 to 10 years plus. I'm also the co-author of the book that we're going to talk about today with Jennifer Gefsky, my co-author, who lives in New York. She's a mother of 3. Her kids range between the ages of 9 and 16. And I'm a former reporter for the Wall Street Journal, where I covered business and technology news out here and was the live show host of a technology show called Digits, which was a super fun part of my career. I left after having my second child. I had my first child. I ended up going part-time, never expected to go part-time in my career, but had the baby. I'm married to a spouse with a big career as well, and realized that I wanted to spend more time with my child. So made a decision that I hadn't really planned to make, to go part-time. And then after the birth of my second child, got a lot of questions from my peers about how I had negotiated that part-time schedule. And at the time, there weren't as many career resources, particularly targeted at women and parents, navigating the career journey. And so I left to found my own business, which was acquired by Après. In my other life, I'm this person. I'm the mother of 2. I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old. And I'm all of these things. I'm going to read them. Mother, wife, daughter, sister, friend, chef, birthday planner, PGA co-chair, volunteer, doctor goer, been there this week, vet goer, been there this week, grocery getter, dinner party hoster, summer camp planner, vacation planner, maintenance coordinator, photographer, problem solver, tax liaison, working on that right now, Girl Scout cookie boss, we should revisit this, snack expert, soccer, basketball, futsal, baseball mom, Spreadsheeter, multitasker, project helper, homework helper, clothes orderer, closet organizer, form filler outer, gift orderer, cheerleader, playdate coordinator, emotional supporter, conflict mitigator. Can anyone here relate to all of those things? It's a long list. I wish they could just like populate on the screen as the way that they sort of populate in my head and demand priorities at different times, and often it's many of them going on at the same time. So what all of this is really meant to help you say and understand is that being a working mom is hard. And I understand this personally. My co-author, Jennifer Gefsky, understands this personally. We've both walked this walk and talked this talk for many years. But we also understand it because we run this company called Après, where we help recruit, retain, and return women talent to the workforce. And in that capacity, I've really had the honor of talking to thousands of women over the last many years about how it is for them as working mothers, the struggles to get back into the workforce when they take career breaks, and how challenging it is to navigate the things that they want to do with their career and also the parent that they want to be. And we talk to them individually, we talk to them collectively, and what we decided was that we wanted to put those learnings into a book, largely because what we understand is that while every person's personal experience is unique, their job is unique, their family life is unique, their interests and wants are unique, but a lot of the infrastructure of work, the demands that we have to be the parents that we want to be, the things that we see for ourselves and that we want to be, the goals that we want to hit, a lot of these things have a lot of universality to them. And so we wanted to take those learnings and put them into a book. So your turn right here, which hopefully some of you will take home copies of today, is to really help women get ahead of what we call career confusion and to make the best decisions for themselves and for their families with the most information that they can have available at their fingertips from all of the women and resources and experts and coaches that we've talked to, so that when you make those decisions, which often feel so heavy, you know that you're making the best one for you at that moment. And then we want to help women know that they're not alone, that this is something that everyone goes through, and that we together can all be helpful to each other. Okay, so as part of researching this book and through our work, we do a lot of looking at what the state of working mothers is in the United States. And so I wanted to take kind of a step back and a big picture of what that looks like before we get to the tools and strategies that I hope will be really helpful for you to set yourselves up best for your own personal success at work and at home. So women have made big strides in the American workplace since the early 1960s with the passing of the Equal Pay Act of 1963, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and the subsequent establishment of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. As of December, non-farm payrolls, which just came out in January, women have just inched above men in terms of how many women are in the workforce. So it's just over half. And this is the first time in 10 years that more women have worked than men. They've surpassed men in education since the early 1980s, earning the bulk of college degrees as well as graduate degrees. And they've continued to just hit new highs. Now, of course, this all isn't perfect. We still deal with equal pay, sexual harassment, lots of different kinds of things, but there are new highs that women have earned in the workplace. They're the majority of the college-educated workforce as of last year. Again, they just took over becoming the majority of the US workforce late last year. And then last year, we also saw the most Fortune 500 female CEOs ever. And of course, that's a number that fluctuates. But these are really important things that are happening. And it's a message to all of us that you as individuals have a lot of power in the workplace that you can leverage for yourself and for others. And of course, mothers have been a really big part of this story as well. 72% of mothers with children under the age of 18 work outside of the home. 40% of households, 4 in 10 households, have a breadwinner mother. And in the last about 4-ish years, we've seen a jump of 4% in the number of single mothers in the workplace. So a lot more women are doing this on their own. But rest assured, the motherhood penalty is very real. Mothers at work are viewed as less committed to the job than non-mothers. They're paid less than women with no children. It's 81 cents women to men on the dollar, and 71 cents mothers to men. They're held to higher punctuality standards. They're 6 times less likely to be recommended for hire. They're less likely to be promoted, and they receive lower competency ratings as candidates. And they lack access to, often, not everywhere, but they lack access to paid leave, affordable childcare, flexible and remote work options, as well as on and off ramp programs that make it easy for women to come and go from the workforce. And of course, you could add often, just like women in general, also suffer from harassment. On top of this, they still do the bulk of childcare. This slide is one of my favorite slides. It shows that women do 14 hours of childcare each week, 18 hours of household work, versus men 8 and 10. And what's really interesting is that that number for men, 8 hours a week, has tripled since the 1960s, which is fantastic because it means that men are, again, these are averages, but men are doing more of childcare. But that number for women has also increased from 10 to 14 hours in that same time period, despite the fact that more women are working outside of the house and working for pay. So in the 60s, it was like an average of 9 hours per week that someone was paid, and today it's 25 hours per week that a woman is paid. And they're still doing the bulk of the childcare, which really goes to tell you how the nature of parenting has changed. And then, of course, the hours between 18 and 10 in that household chore arena is still, men are catching up and they're pulling more of their weight, which is great. And then sort of on top of all of this, work got greedy. I think Claire Kane Miller of the New York Times, who covers this space, put it so well in her April story last year. Women did everything right, then work got greedy. Just as she wrote this paragraph, which I just think is fantastic. It says, just as more women earned degrees, the jobs that require those degrees started paying disproportionately more to people with round-the-clock availability. At the same time, more highly educated women began to marry men with similar educations and to have children. But parents can be on call at work only if someone is on call at home, and usually that person is the mother. And so with that article, they ran this graphic that I just love. It says, I'm working a reduced schedule for the next 18 years and will have limited access to email. I will reply to your message when the nature of capitalism changes. So there's one for you. So the question for you all really becomes, what are the things that you can do to survive the messy middle, which is when parenting and work collide before the nature of capitalism changes? I'd love to get a sense of people in the room. How many of you are already parents? It looks like the majority. Are any of you expecting or, oh, congratulations? Or even just thinking about being a parent and getting ahead of it? Okay. Sometimes we have people that attend on that front as well, which I also think is just fantastic. So what I'd love to do is just walk through 10 strategies that we've really found as things that can be helpful for what we would consider setting yourself up at home and at work to be the successful person that you want to be, which is going to be very individual and very personal to all of you and what that looks like. But I'd love for this to be collaborative as well. I know we're recording, so we can save Q&A to the end, but if you have something where you say, I'd love to offer one of my personal strategies for those things, we can all learn from, I can learn from you all, and we can all learn from each other. So please don't be shy, and I'll try to keep my eye open for questions or comments. Okay, so let's get started. Hire the childcare that you need and other help. And on one level, this is very obvious, right? But I think that what we all need to do in our heads is kind of flip the script is a thing that I like to say. Flip the script and really look at this through a different lens of what you're doing. There's a lot of guilt that women have around the fact that they're outsourcing their childcare. But if you look at it differently, it can be really looked at as an investment in your career. Your ability to be here and to be your best self at work is really dependent on you having fantastic childcare where you're not worried about what's happening with your children. And so you want to make sure that you take the time to really set that up. Of course, those are the things that always change, right? In terms of what that child care could look like. Obviously, this could be a spouse or a partner that chooses to not work as hard. It might be a caregiver that you hire. It could be a caregiver who's a family member. It could be a child care center or even a school. So many schools, the infrastructure is set up to really support working parents with early care and extended care. But really look at it as an investment in your career. And of course, understand that childcare is extraordinarily expensive. It's about 20% of household incomes in some cases, and can cost, in some scenarios, as much as a state college tuition. So you're not alone in feeling like, we get a lot of people who come to us and they're like, well, I stopped working because I felt like my paycheck wasn't really worth what the childcare was covering. But you have to look at it and understand that stepping out of the workforce means you're not earning a paycheck, you're not contributing to your family, and then there's a gap often when you get back in. So there's a lot of value to find the right childcare and invest in it. Prioritize what's important to your family. So a lot of what we talk about in Your Turn is communicating with your key stakeholders. That can be your partner, your family, your spouse, your children, your workplace, and everybody else in between, but really getting on the same board from a communications perspective. I can't tell you how many times I've shown up at the school, like right at pickup time, and I've been like, let's go, we're gonna go home, we're gonna have a snack, and my kids are like, we don't wanna go home. We want to go to extended care. We want to have the snack there, and we don't want to come home with you. And I've just like burned it across the city to get there, thinking that this was really important to all of us, and it's clearly not important to all of us. And so the message there is to talk to them about what is important. Where is your presence most valued? Maybe they want you to attend a field trip. Maybe they want you to come to a morning event. Maybe they want you to let them go to X-Care. But getting really clear on those things will help you de-stress in not feeling guilty about the things that you're missing. And the one thing I would say in return there is then to be flexible on what some of those priorities might be for the key stakeholders that you're talking to. We gave a talk recently where a woman told us that she had talked with her son, and it was really important to him that she be home for dinner. And so she went into her employer and said, it's really important that I make it home for dinner. And the employer said, well, it's really difficult for me to give you flexibility at the end of the day because our business is fundraising, and they happen to hold a lot of like late afternoon and early evening events. But I can give you flexibility in the morning, and you're welcome to come in much later. And so they flipped it at home, and she does the whole morning routine. They have breakfast together, and she walks the child to school, and then is able to stay a little bit later into the evening. And so I think that as we think about what those priorities are for ourselves and our families, then we have to think about how those fit into the reality of the work structure where you are today, and then being flexible on what that could look like. Okay. Learn to say no. And I just love this picture of this woman smiling at this. Learn to say no, because in my life, I'm like, learn to say no. But I think there's actually another strategy here, which is learn to say no with a smile and actually really mean it. This is one of the hardest things for people to do. We are, as humans, really hardwired to please other people. And when we sort of say no to someone, we feel like we're letting them down and breaking that bond. And you have to be able to let that go so that you don't have a list as long as mine. Like, I'm still a work in progress, obviously, on saying no. But you have to be able to let that go so that you can protect your time for the things that really matter and that are important to you and your family. Because if you're pulled in so many directions because you've said yes to so many things, then nothing ever feels good. You always feel like you're running ragged, you're tired. And so this is a really important step. And we have a lot of different strategies in the book that I'm not going to walk through today, but if you need help in that area, I think one of the best steps is just the next thing that you get asked to do that you're sort of like, just say no. Say it as nicely as possible, and know that it doesn't have to be permanent. A no today can be a yes another day. It's just in this moment. Okay. Own your schedule. So you all work at a place where I feel like you have a lot of decent flexibility, which hopefully is the truth. That's fantastic. But getting really autonomous about your schedule. One of the things that men do is sort of rely on that don't ask, don't tell mentality around flexibility, where they'll just leave and they don't seek permission. And women are permission seekers and often ask if it's okay to do X, Y, or Z versus just doing X, Y, or Z. And then still being that amazing employee that you already are. And so one of the things that you can think about is, and some of the most successful people that I know, working mothers that do this, basically they just leave when they need to leave. And what this does is it sets boundaries for everybody else. And you're sort of quietly coaching people on what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable. It's not acceptable to start a meeting, let's say, at 5:15 or 5:30. I really hope that's not happening to you all. When the child care center closes at 6. Or you have to get home to relieve the caregiver. So sort of that, you can choose to do it two ways. One is quietly, the other one is loudly. I'm not available between the hours of 5 and 8. I will be offline for those hours and back online at 8. You have to figure out what works best for you and what your best communication strategy is. But again, it kind of gets back to that communication, the priorities, and getting really clear on what your schedule and owning it for yourself and not feeling guilty about it. One of the things that I love that some of the consulting companies do is called radical calendaring. So if you're a manager, you can message to other people that you're going for a haircut at noon, or you do a yoga class from 3 to 4, or you leave at 4 to go to the basketball practice, but putting that in a calendar so that other people that work for you, essentially that report to you, can see that you do this is extremely valuable and goes a long way. Events, so I sort of look at this as like you've got day-to-day from a schedule perspective, you've got events, and then you have travel. I think travel is probably the most difficult of all of these, and we could probably spend an entire hour talking about travel. I think you need to get very clear on what your role is, how much travel is necessary, and then start talking with the key stakeholders on that one. Events, you can actually, you can do some quarterly goal setting. So events, unfortunately, for team building and networking, often are at night. And this is really hard for working parents and not really respectful of working parents, honestly. But But one of the things that I would suggest there is doing some quarterly goal setting, which I'm sure a lot of you do already, and figuring out what some of those professional development goals could be, and then deciding whether those events fit into that or not, and then choosing whether it's worthwhile to go or not. And maybe there's, maybe in a course of a quarter, there's a couple, but that way you're not every night feeling like you're missing out on something important. Okay, over communicate with your kids. And you'll see that my theme here is communication all the time, but I think being really clear about why you do what you do and being able to talk about it with your children is really critical as well. You are spending a lot of time away from your children, but there's a good reason. It contributes to the resources for your family. It fills you as a person, and on a big picture, it contributes to the economy. But you can talk to them. Some of the women that we interviewed use it as a way to talk to children about passion and finding out what they're passionate about and explaining to them that you wouldn't be away from them if it weren't really important to you in some capacity, and you can explain what that is to them. And then a lot of times we talk about calendaring here as well, and just even for little children, like writing down, if you do travel overnight, this is a great tip for if you do travel overnight, like write down the number of sleeps that you're going to be gone for, maybe print out a calendar where they can see what time you're going to be home. Make it part of their of their schedule as well, so that they're not wondering, oh, when are you coming and going? And then don't say things like, I may make it, I may not. Just be really specific as to whether you're going to make it to the Halloween event or whatever it might be. Onboard people to help. So I feel like this is one area where I really failed in the beginning, because I think that the first person that you really need to onboard is your partner or spouse. And if you don't have a partner or spouse, then you have to decide who those other constituents are going to be that you can onboard. I have a great husband. I should say that. I don't mean that, I'm not putting him down by any means, but I was working a flexible schedule and he was not. He is a very capable person, but I took on everything. And we had a moment where one of my kids got sick. I was on a trip in New York, and I had never shared any of the phone numbers, how to get in touch with schools. And this poor guy was like, our other child's still at the preschool, I've got to get him, and was struggling with how to get in touch with people who could help. And so my point in sharing that story is that it's really critical to bring in the people that you know need to be helping on a lot of other things, and then give them the power, empower them to do those things. And this can be those things like scheduling doctor's appointments, going to the vet, doing the summer camp planning. I mean, if you've never summer camp planned, you just wait for it. And contact me or Vivian for the spreadsheet, right? But those are the types of things that take what we call the mental load, and they take up so much room and time in your head. And it's really important to bring in those other people who can help you with those. I think you all should probably look at your benefits. Companies as big as this often have concierge groups. They have companies that they contract with to help vet caregivers, both for children as well as elderly. Utilize all of those things that you can use, and then use all of the services that technology has enabled us to make our lives a lot easier and get things delivered, figure out what things you want delivered when, have it on a regular basis. Just get ahead from an organizational perspective on those types of things. Okay. Rally your other support system. So one of the best things about being a working mom for me has been all of the mothers in my life who are both working and non-working, and really spending time to cultivate those relationships so that we can all be helpful to each other when we need that extra backup. So I just think it's really important to invest in, that doesn't necessarily have to be a working mother network for you. It could be a different network of friends. It could be a big family, but investing in those relationships and giving back to those relationships when they do something for you is really, I think, a wonderful thing. Okay. Create your own power circle. So I really love this concept of thinking about either some who you've known for a long time, maybe they're in different industries, maybe they're in your same industry, women that you can get together with who understand immediately what you're talking about, so that you can have a sounding board and you can rely on each other for that professional support. You can get those in professional networking organizations like Watermark, Lean In, all sorts of different ones that you could point to. But I think it's nice. There's a book called The Stiletto Network that talks about how Meg Whitman and some other really powerful women over time would just get together quarterly for dinner and talk through the things that were in front of them from a professional perspective. And so I love that idea. I love bringing people together in general, but I think it could be something as casual as getting together for lunch here at Google. I'm sure I know you have employee resource groups. Those are fantastic as well. So really lean into those if you can. Okay, prioritize self-care. So for a lot of people, this is going to look really different, but we know that brain functionality, personal health, all of these things really benefit from taking time to take care of yourself. And what women naturally do is they think, me taking time to do this for myself is selfish, because they put everybody else in front of them before them. And so I implore you to find those minutes in the day that are just for you. Maybe it means if you live within walking distance, walking 20 to 30 minutes and then commuting home in a different way and listening to a podcast that you like. Maybe it means taking a class that does take you away on a weekend or in an evening, but spend the time to find those things. For some people, it will be exercise. I've been using Gixo, which I think is fantastic. You get a coach actually in your ear who talks to you about different exercises that you can do in 20 minutes, just like in the park nearby your house. When I'm stressed for time and cannot get a workout in, I literally run up and down the hill in front of our house, and my kids time me. And I look like a fool, I know this, but I get it in and I feel much better. And then there are little things that you can do for yourself. So a good example, I wore this necklace today. One of the coaches that we work with gave it to me last week, and it's actually called the Evil Eye, which I found a little laughable, but it's meant to protect you and ward you off, however you say that, from judgment of other people. And so it's like this tiny little personal self-care that I can wear around. And I also wore my special bracelet for you all today. This is my power bracelet. It's a jaguar, two jaguars meeting together here. I wear this when I feel like I've got to really bring some power to something for myself, not necessarily for other people, but it helps me, and I can look down and be like, oh yeah, I wore the jaguar bracelet today. So even just finding those tiny little things that sort of that Ally McBeal moment for yourselves, you can just protect yourself a little bit. So give up on failure and guilt. I mean, I almost feel just like a full stop. There's nothing else to say. Just give them up, write them down, failure, guilt, X them out, and put them in the freezer. Do something with them that you can just wash them away, because they will sneak up on you at times when you're not expecting them. They will sabotage things that are otherwise going extremely well for you. So you need to, we work with a coach that, they talk a lot about your inner critic. We have one coach who names her inner critic mean old Noni. And anytime that voice starts to come up, she goes, oh, that's mean old Noni. Just trying to keep me from getting to whatever it is that I'm trying to get to next. And know that what you're doing is really valuable. It's valuable that you're here and showing up at work. It's valuable for the company. It's valuable for yourself. It's valuable for your family. And there's so much data that shows that it's valuable for your children to see that you're out and working and to be raised by a mother who's doing this every day. So feel really good about it and try to internalize that every day. You've got this, right? That's what we're saying. So take it easy on yourself. I gave a talk a few weeks ago where a woman, she works for a big hospital group and has 3 children. She has an amazing career, and she's got 3 children. And she spoke about feeling guilty at work because she felt like she was modeling to the other women there that she had it all together and that she wasn't struggling at all, even though inside she feels like she's struggling every day. And those are the types of things where we need to just cut ourselves some slack, because she should not be worrying about what she's modeling to other people from that perspective. She should be thinking how great it is that she's showing up, that she's making it to work she has like an infant too. She's getting there and she's modeling to the other women that it can be done. So she needs to flip it and look at it on the positive side. So if there's one thing you take away today, remember to cut yourself some slack and realize that you do have this. Stop comparing yourself to others. One of the things that we hear a lot from working moms is sometimes they're upset or worried about the relationships that non-working mothers have, that they don't have time to forge those relationships. And then the non-working mothers are worried that the working mothers are judging them because they're not working. I mean, these are the types of things that we're all in this together. And your career is going to ebb and flow, and your career is going to have a really long arc. And I'm the daughter of a person who took 10 years off from the workforce and then went back into the workforce in a huge way. And so I think that we need to just decrease the stress and decrease the judgment so that whatever path it is that you're choosing to take, to know that one's okay. Remember your motivation, right? I mean, we all start out in our careers super excited about what we're going to do, and that doesn't really necessarily go away. And so you want to keep that fresh and remember why you're doing the things that you're doing. Write those down too. Keep them in a little, in your phone or in a notebook or wherever. And then own your seat at the table. So all of this can't be put on women's shoulders, but as you move up in your career and have the opportunity to manage other people and to role model for others, I think it's really important to think about the steps that you personally can take to model that and help the people that are coming behind you. Okay, so the reasons that these are important, besides the importance of what you're doing, is that 86% of women are mothers by the time they're 44. This is a large portion of the population. And it's really costly when women leave companies. It costs companies $47 billion annually globally when women leave their companies. So there is incentive on the employer side to figure out how to make it work better for you, and there's incentive for you to also figure out how to make it work for yourself. So my final question for y'all is, what is it your turn to do? So thank you so much, and I'd love to take some questions if you have any, and see if we can help with anything or answer anything. Yes.
Hi, my name's Erica. Hi. I'm a breadwinning working mom. I have a 3-year-old and an 8-year-old. Not a question. I just wanted to put 2 tips out for the group.
Good.
And first of all, thank you so much, Stacey, because a lot of what you talked about, everything you talked about resonated with me.
Oh, good.
So one tip is my kids have always been in daycare. I've never have had a nanny, but it got to a point where I was just felt like I was doing everything. So especially if you live in San Francisco, it's really expensive. So we found a great college student. So she's fairly cheap. And she comes over on Sundays from 3 to 8 and on Wednesday evenings, and she helps with folding laundry. Like, I don't fold any laundry anymore, which is amazing. If I want to take some me time and go get my nails done or yoga, like, she'll take the kids to the park. Or if maybe I want to take the kids to the park because I feel like I'm always doing errands with them on the weekend. So she's just kind of there to help, however I need her. So that's one thing. So look for like Nextdoor or Care.com, like look for college students because they have flexible schedules, and she's awesome. Second is grocery shopping. So I actually introduced my colleague to this. Prime Now, so Whole Foods delivery. I don't go to the grocery store anymore. Like, I sit in my bed on Saturday mornings and make my list, and I probably spend less at the grocery store because I'm not doing impulse shopping. So just kind of 2 tips for the group.
No, and that's really important. Thank you that's a lot of the mental load that we were talking about too. Like, there are just so many different, there are different ways. And what you just shared is that your childcare needs changed, right? So when they're little, it's almost easier because you can either send them to a child care center or daycare. You can have a caregiver that you hire that comes into your home. But then as they get older, there's also just so many more activities, right? So you might look into a mother's helper who picks the kids up and takes them to guitar or whatever it is. So I love those tips. That's fantastic. And outsource laundry if you can.
Hi, my name is Kim. I have a 7-month-old daughter at home. So I just came back from maternity leave. Thank you. Thank you for being here. My question is actually related to what she just shared. So you mentioned that you went back part-time at some point. And I'm literally like wondering what you did when you were with your kids at home. So one of the things, sometimes I feel like I'm a new mom, so I feel so comfortable in my job because I've been doing it for a while, very familiar. And like being a mom, we go to play groups and stuff like that, but I'm still discovering what I want the quality time to look like together.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Yeah, that's lovely.
So yeah, I'm curious that. And the other piece I'm thinking about is hiring someone else. So not just for the daycare, but like what tasks do I need to be doing versus someone else that we could totally hire separate from the childcare?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, laundry, definitely.
Yeah.
I'm a
laundry,
big
groceries.
outsourcer of the laundry. And cleaning the house. One of the jokes that we have in our family is that I hired somebody who is like my lifeline, who helps with so much. But I hired somebody to come in and, let me back up. One of the things that often goes for women, especially if they stop working or work less, is they let go of anyone who's helping them clean their house. And I did the opposite. I doubled down. And I did not, and this is... I did not tell my husband immediately that I had done this. And so he was coming home and he was like, this is amazing. The house is so clean. And I was like, I know. And I was not doing it. And so those were the things that like were really meaningful to us. And so I think when you know what those are, then those are the things that you could outsource. I haven't gotten this is just me personally, I haven't gotten to outsourcing the groceries because I enjoy going to the grocery store, but it is next on my list because it is such a time suck. So on the how to spend time with your baby, there are some really fun I think resources that can help with that. There's a group, they used to be called Rookie Moms, but now they're called 510 Families. And they have like age appropriate things that you can do with your child. I mean, it changes, right? So 7 months, is she crawling or? Not yet. Well, okay. And is it a?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm aware of resources like that, but I was actually just curious, like for you personally.
What did I do?
So different? Yeah, for each person, how do you combine errands with just how do you spend time? Because sometimes it's easier to think, oh, it's more valuable for me to be at work, even though it's important to have a relationship.
Right. Well, and I was a reporter, so it was really interesting, and I felt like I was also training almost everybody else on how not to contact me during those days. And it's so tempting when you love your job. I loved my job. It's so tempting to want to respond to everybody and not worry about things that you're missing out on. So I had to work really hard at sort of being present in those moments. And so I just would get really busy, and we walked a lot, and we went to the library, and we did all those kinds of things. And then it changes because when they're that little, you're working on totally different things than you might be doing when they're 3 or 4. I don't know that I was totally organized about how I spent all that time, but I really did try to, make it, even if you're just in your house, right? Hanging out together, like it doesn't have to be some big production, but just sort of being around together. Yeah.
Hi, Stacey. I'm
Hi.
Haley. I'm
Hi, Haley.
also just back from maternity leave. And what I do with my sons is I just have them do the dishes with me or go with me to the grocery store. And that's like a fun activity because I also like struggle with a young age.
Yeah.
But I also have a 2.5-year-old, and I'm working on a personal development plan. And as I think about my career goals and my goals as a mom and a wife and a family member, I think of it very holistically, but I'm a little unclear about how honest I should be with my manager or my leadership or people in the holistic vision of my next move in my career.
Mm-hmm.
But I really view them as together. So I'd love some tips and tricks on what's that balance of being vocal about your mom life and about being a little guarded because you don't want people to judge you for that or.
Right. We get that question a lot. Look, I think that on some level, there's a bit of a reckoning to be had about the fact that, we have women who we did a talk recently where a woman had gone back to work after she'd taken almost like 20 years off. And she went back to work, and she had 4 children, and she did not tell anyone at that new job that she had children for 2 years. And that was a really big eye-opener about how intense that feeling can be for people. But I think that that's almost part of the problem, right? That this is something that we should all be talking about and understanding together and collectively more. That said, not every detail needs to be shared. And so I think as a businesswoman, you're going to understand what that line is, and, finding the right people to talk about it with. I think one great strategy is to get a coach of some kind, where if you feel like there's things that you want to be able to express that you might not necessarily be able to express to your manager, you at least have an outlet where you can talk about it and get advice on how to handle it professionally, because each case is going to be very different.
Hi, Stacey. Thank you so much for the talk today. This is wonderful to be here. I'm one of those moms who took a career break.
good for you.
So that was a very, very tough choice. I had my first one. I used to work in American Express, which did not have as generous a maternity leave that folks here get. I wish I could have a third one, but anyway, now I've decided not to. So when my first one was born, I went back to work right after 12 weeks, which felt like brutal. I did not think I was ready, but when I went to work, I felt like, yes, this is where I was, this is where I belong, and I want to go back, I want to work. But it was that fake happiness that I used to show up with at work, which finally kind of wore down on me. And then when my husband and I decided to have a second one, I said, I cannot do this again. I'm not ready to go back to work. I'm going to call it quits. So I think I'm one of those people who took that route. And I quit my job. I stayed home. I did all the cleaning, laundry, dishes, everything. I called myself like, stay-at-home mom. But then it was a very interesting story. After 10 years of having interviewed, not being out of workforce, I interviewed with Google, which was my first time interviewing at all after taking that break. And I made it back into this role that I'm in right now, which was amazing. But at the same time, I also saw my other stay-at-home moms who I thought are equally capable and are trying so hard. They looked at me as someone who just got lucky. I do feel like they're also capable. I never feel like, they're any less. So I always wonder, like, do you as a part of Après, do you have any advocacy? Like, do you advocate to these big companies to do something called returnships, right? So some companies run this like an internship kind of a thing.
Yep. We market a lot of those for companies. And I think they're really valuable. I think they're great ways for women to get back into the workforce and get access. But there's just not enough of them, and this kind of gets to what Haley and tell me your name again. Michelle and Michelle were saying about, talking about the fact that they're mothers in the workplace. And the reason that I say it's important is because we need to basically normalize the caregiving years, right? And when you normalize it and talking about it and not hiding it, then it becomes this thing where it's not such a hurdle to come and go from the workplace. It shouldn't be this huge step that people feel like they have to go through in order to get back into a job. And so, yes, we do a lot of advocacy in that front, and I spend a lot of time thinking and talking about that topic in particular, and that's from a passion perspective, one of my big passions. It's interesting because people of all income levels will step out of the workplace, and then just that challenge to get back in. So by talking about it out loud in the workplace, I think just helps other people understand the need for the respect for those caregiving years, and then hopefully make it. But congrats to you on making the jump back in.
So I just wanted to say thank you again. Thank you so much for coming. This was super helpful.
Thank you.
All of us.
Thank you.